He's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 30 years of experience.
And he's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director, and the author of two books on the creative brief. Together, we're the Brief Brothers, and we like talking about advertising, creative briefs, and briefing. So, Howard, today I thought I would bring the topic du jour to the table, which is, as we were just commenting offline, the Rorschach test of the day, which is the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle campaign. And you told me that you know almost nothing about it other than that it's a controversy. But I thought we'd get into it because part of our remit here is advertising, and this is like a
Yeah.
big advertising buzz that's going on. And so, what do you know about it so that we could get that on the table, and then I can fill in the blanks.
Okay, you're gonna throw it to me. And it's like I am not gonna stoop to dignify that this is even a thing. No, I'm not done, but that's kind of essentially my opinion. It is the manufactured, self-righteous kerfuffle of the moment. It is evident that it was a slow news day because all of a sudden this became a thing. I think in part this is a way to draw attention away from, I think, a far more important issue, which is the Cannes Festival of Creativity scandal,
Mm.
which our friend Nick Asbury has been diligent about reporting on almost every day on LinkedIn. And I don't keep up with absolutely everything that goes on LinkedIn every day, but he has been, the voice of outrage, the I think necessary outrage. So I think this is a good example of someone was just like bored and we needed to throw a bomb and have a discussion, and someone had to have the ability to point the finger and say, you are you know, the most despicable human being because you don't agree with me. I have no more information about this topic other than it exists. There's an ad out there with this woman who, before the scandal broke, I knew nothing of. And that the headline is, what's her name again? Sweeney?
Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes. And that someone took offense. And someone took offense at the offense that someone took. And my position on this is none of your goddamn business. I have no opinion. I'm not going to dignify it. I'm not going to stoop to acknowledge that it exists. And there's my position.
Okay. Well, that's a fair position, and no one is forcing you to take a position. I agree with you, by the way. I think this is a manufactured controversy, but I thought it would be good to kind of take a minute to like dissect it a little bit. So, American Eagle is a brand. It's a retailer that sells denim. It was founded in the 70s. They sell like casual wear. You may have seen their stores in the mall. They compete with places like Abercrombie and Fitch. Eh,
Mall? What's a mall?
they still exist. Actually, I just came back from vacation in Mexico and I had kind of a revelation that in-person retail, like in tourist destinations, is still a big thing. I think
Hmm.
people like to go shopping when they're on vacation, um, but that's neither here nor there. In any
We could do a
case,
whole episode on that one.
yeah, in any case, this it's a brand, it's a retailer, it's a brand that it's kind of been a little bit become wallpaper, not a brand with a lot of recent cultural cachet, I would say. And they hired Sydney Sweeney, who's an actress, a young actress, 27 years old. She was in I guess, a series called Euphoria, another one called The White Lotus. Um, and I knew of her before, not because I watched those series, but because um, she was an ambassador in 2023 for Ford. Like she has a vintage Bronco and she's into automotive stuff. And so it was like a natural fit for her and Ford. Um, so that was kind of cool. And she was also the Rolling Stones had an album in like 23 called Hackney Diamonds, and they had a song called Angry, and she's like the star of the video. So they hired Sydney Sweeney, by the way, blonde hair, blue eye, 27-year-old, very attractive young woman, to appear in this campaign. And I think that's one of the points that I wanted to make is this wasn't like all of the attention is being focused on one ad, but the ad was part of a larger campaign. And I think it's unfair to judge one execution and one line in one execution without like looking at it in its totality and saying, well, what are they really trying to communicate here? So there was like photo shoots, social, there was back to school content, TikTok videos, and there's the line that was so controversial is that she's saying to camera, genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue. And she looks at the camera and you see her blue eyes. And then the voiceover announcer says, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. And so this was somehow by the outrage machine morphed into a call for eugenics. How you make the leap from what she said to eugenics to me is really in the eye of the beholder. This is like the joke that the old Yenta finds dirty, but it's only because she's got a dirty mind and is reading something innocent as dirty. That's the way that I read it anyway, because first of all, what she actually says, genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. There's nothing false about that. Like, it doesn't even say always determines, it says often determining, right? So genetics are part of how we are what we are. And that's the setup for the dad joke of my jeans are blue, which again, to me, completely inoffensive. But some people made a leap to eugenics there. And, because she's white and she's, well, I guess you would say traditionally attractive, she's blonde, blue eyed. Are we now supposed to shun people that, for the first 100 years of Hollywood were considered attractive? Like, I don't get it. But also, a big part of what bothers me about this is that American Eagle is a brand that, if you look at their work, they're pretty inclusive. In fact, like you go to their YouTube channel right now, like the featured video is there from 6 months ago with Coco Gauff, who I don't know if you're familiar with.
Mhm.
She's a tennis
Tennis
player,
player. Yeah.
African American tennis player.
He's very young,
Yeah,
emerged on the scene very young and was making a lot of progress, winning all kinds of tournaments. He was
yeah.
doing very well.
So I don't understand the allegation where it comes from. Like if this was a brand that had some sort of history of outrageous things and politically or racially divisive commentary, but it's not. The contrary, it's pretty much what you'd expect for a brand that's trying to capture Gen Z audience. It's like pretty politically correct. But the interesting thing is they didn't back down from the campaign. They didn't withdraw it. They didn't apologize. They basically said we stand by the fact that Sydney Sweeney has great genes, and which I think is funny because it goes to show you, if you hold out long enough and weather the storm, nothing's going to happen. And in fact, in the last month, the share price of American Eagle has gone up 27%. So somebody is like capitalizing on all of this publicity that
Well,
they're getting.
maybe this is a complete tangent, but to my view, I don't watch a lot of I don't own, first of all, I don't own a television, but I do stream on my laptop. And I do have a subscription to Prime. And because of another membership, I have Walmart Plus. They gave me access to Paramount. So I've got two streaming services that I watch, but I get the cheapy ones, right? Which means I have to sit through advertising. So I know all about some of these pharmaceutical drugs inside and out, whether I want to or not, right? Okay, well,
They're tracking you by your age, Howard. They
I
know that
know.
you're in the prime market.
But here's something that I've observed, and this is anecdotal. I don't have any, deep evidence to support this. But my impression is that across multiple brand advertising that I've seen on the streaming services, the only kind of married couple these days is mixed race.
Oh, absolutely.
I've
There's
never
an
seen,
Asian woman with a black eye. It's like the most popular, but yeah.
well, yeah, I don't recall the last time I saw a man and a woman of the same race. In, nothing was said about whether they were actually married. They could have simply been boyfriend, girlfriend. I don't think they were, buddies. But I was, has anyone ever said anything about that? I haven't heard any outrage about that. I don't think it's anything to be outraged about. I think it's pretty cool.
I think
But
there have been critiques online about the
have
evolving
there?
nature of advertising. Like if you're on social media at all, which I am somewhat,
No, I'm
you'll
not.
see that there is an unease among a lot of Americans that like we get it. America's an inclusive country, it's multicultural, but now the representation of minorities in particularly advertising is over the top, like overcorrected. Like to,
That's my point. I mean, as
yeah,
someone
it's
as someone who was in a, multiracial relationship and someone who is attracted to lots of different people, I don't have a type. I found it welcoming, but it was kind of going the other, it's like, whoa, hang on here. I haven't seen any, white men, white women, Hispanic women, Asian
everything
men, Asian, everything is just like everyone's
Howard,
a couple.
everything is gay and interracial now.
Yes, exactly.
That's the way that it is. Yeah, and
The
frankly,
pendulum swings.
I think part of it is brands don't want to be called out like American Eagle, like
Yeah,
because they showed a traditional white couple expressing their white privilege or whatever. So,
right. Well,
it's just
there's an old saying. I don't know who said it. I'd like to know if someone out there does know. If one of our 7 viewers could clue me in, I'd appreciate it. The old saying goes something like this: people would rather be hated than ignored. So I get why a lot of this stuff happens, this screaming and yelling from opposite sides of the pond, not opposite sides of a competitive, space. I get that. And my response to this controversy du jour is to opt for ignoring rather than hating.
I think the moral of the story is not everything has to be political.
Yes, but
It could
it ends up being
or
that.
yeah, it sometimes a jeans ad is just a jeans
It's
ad.
just he said, right. Right. I agree with you. Good stuff, Henry.
Good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
And he's Howard Eibach. Together, we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time.